Starting in 1987, after the initial nationwide launch of the Atari 7800, Atari began labeling some of their games as Super Game Cartridges. Today I'm going to help define what a Super Game Cartridge is, as well as look at all 8 cartridges that were given this label. So what exactly is a Super Game Cartridge? Well, according to Atari, it is one of 2 similar definitions. According to their 1987 fold-out catalog, the 7800 Super Game series is the hottest titles in computer games, available for the first time on a video game system. Thanks to the 7800 Super cartridge and its phenomenal memory storage, you can enjoy more complex gameplay and more excitement. Okay, so a Super Game Cartridge is a computer game available on a home system for the first time thanks to extra memory. But the back of the second main revision box for the Atari 7800 system itself says something a little different. Super Games. Introducing a new line of Super Games for the 7800, games never before playable on a home video game system. The hottest titles from computer formats and arcades. Proven hits like One-on-One Basketball, Sky Fox, and Touchdown Football from Electronic Arts. Karateka from Broderbund, Summer Games, Winter Games, and Impossible Mission from Epix, Hat Trick from Ballblazer, and many, many more. All possible thanks to a new Super cartridge with almost unlimited memory capability. Add these winners to your 7800 game collection now. Okay, so not only do we have computer games, but now we also have arcade games showing up on a home system for the first time thanks to all the extra memory. Is this true? Let's take a look at the 8 Super Games released and find out if they were first-time home ports on larger cartridges. And by the way, the previously mentioned Sky Fox never came out for the 7800, and Touchdown Football was not called a Super Game Cartridge when it was released. Possibly because it was on a 32 kilobyte cartridge that was already used for previously released games like Food Fight, Galaga, and even the Pack-In Pole Position 2. Let's start with the 4 Super Game cartridges that came out in 1987 according to sales records from Atari in part number order. First, we will cover CX7811, Desert Falcon. In this original isometric shooter, you are a falcon trying to gain treasure while avoiding enemies in an Egyptian setting. When you gather 3 hieroglyphics from the ground, you can activate one of several secret power-ups that could either be good like invincibility or bad like disabling your ability to fly. At the end of each stage is a sphinx that takes 1 direct shot to the face to defeat. Do so and you go on to a bonus round before starting a new, longer, and tougher round. While the isometric view can make aiming tough, this is a fun Zaxxon style game, and it was one of my favorite 7800 games growing up, and one of my favorite Super games. But does it fit the definition of being a Super game by being a first-time port from the arcade or a computer to a home system on a large cartridge? With a ROM size of 48K, the size is bigger than the 7800 games from the previous year, which ranged from 16K to 32K. So it's kinda true. But the simple fact is memory prices were going down, and 48K would be on the smaller size of release cartridges from this point on, with many games being 128K in size. This is also an original game, so it's not a first-time port, although Desert Falcon would ironically later be ported to the 2600 and Atari XE computer. Overall, this does not fit the Atari Super Game definition. The second game on our list is CX7822 Karateka, or Karateka, or however you want to say it. According to the game's creator, it really doesn't matter. In this game, you fight several henchmen as you make your way to the evil Akuma, who has kidnapped a princess and your bride-to-be. Each fight is a one-on-one affair, although sometimes a bird will attack you during the fight as well. The controls in this game, well, quite simply, they're a mess. You need to press one button to get in a fighting stance, or a single hit will end your game. While in the fighting stance, you can hold your joystick in various directions to perform different punches and kicks. But there is a severe delay from the time you move the joystick to the time you actually do something on screen, leading to a frustrating experience. This game is also pretty watered down compared with the original. While the 7800 port does have some cutscenes, which is nice for a 7800 game, they aren't very well done. You also have less fights, and a bird that is now invincible and will attack you while you're fighting another fighter, increasing the difficulty. Overall, this is in contention for the weakest port of the game. So the experience definitely is not super, but does it fit Atari's definition of a super game? As a 48 kilobyte cartridge, it is larger than the previous year's titles, but it could have also used even more memory that some of the other super games got to improve this poor port. And this game does port over a computer game to a home system for the first time, at least in the United States, as the Famicom got a port of the game in late '85 in Japan. And it was a first-time port in North America. I guess you could say that this fits Atari's definition of a super game. Our third game is CX7824, one-on-one basketball, based on the 1983 computer game by Electronic Arts. In this game, you play as either Dr. J or Larry Bird in a game of one-on-one basketball, either up to a certain number of points or a full four-quarter game. During the game, you can get fatigued, but you can call timeout to regain energy. The game also has fouls that can lead to free throws, and the ability to get hot, where if you make enough shots in a row, 4 or 5 according to the manual, you will make shots from just about anywhere on the court, something that NBA Jam would use years later on. You can even use the select button on the system to play in slow motion. The game will occasionally show you instant replays, and you can even break the backboard with a jam, causing the janitor to yell at you. This game is another fun one on the system, but is it super? This is another 48K cartridge, but it is not the first port of the game of the computer original. That would go to the ColecoVision port that came out in the mid-80s. Our fourth game is CX7831 Winter Games, which is based on the 1985 Epyx computer game. Unfortunately, it only has 4 events: bobsled, biathlon, speed skating, and ski jump, whereas the original had 6 events, but it's still pretty fun to play. With the Olympics occurring in 1988, it would make sense for Atari to try to push related games out in time. While this game does appear on the 1987 Atari sales report, there is a belief that the game didn't hit store shelves until '88. In Winter Games, you can choose how many events you want to play, and compete against others if you wish. I personally enjoy biathlon the best, which combines cross-country skiing with target shooting, but the bobsled and the ski jump can also be fun. But is this a super game? This game clearly would qualify on the memory side, with a 128 kilobyte cartridge size that also includes an extra 16K of RAM. This would dwarf anything Atari released before, but as far as being the first port on a home system, it looks like it didn't quite hit the mark, with a version on the NES and even an Atari 2600 port published by Epyx themselves hitting store shelves first, although it's very close. Now we move to 1988 with 3 more super games. First is CX7815, Ballblazer, based on the Lucasfilm game originally designed for the Atari 8-bit computers. In this futuristic one-on-one sports game, you pilot your hydrofoil, trying to capture the orb and shoot it into your opponent's goal in a split-screen setup. You get extra points if you make your goal from further away, but as you score, the distance between your moving goalposts shrink. When you have the orb, you move slower than your opponent, and when you shoot it, or try to knock out the orb from your opponent, you experience some pushback. This game is a blast to play, and one of my favorites for the system. I'd call it super, but would it fit Atari's definition of being a super game? The size side, well, it's debatable. Surprisingly, this is only a 32K cart, which is amazing considering how smoothly the game moves in an impressive 3D environment. But what it does have is an added Pokey music chip on the cartridge itself, allowing for its amazing improvised music. So it's not larger, but it does have an extra chip. However, Atari should have known better than calling this game super by its definition, as it was already ported to a home system, Atari's own 5200 no less, before it came to the 7800. Next, we have CX7826 Summer Games, based on the 1984 Epyx computer game. Set up in a similar style to Winter Games, you now have 6 events, which is less than what the original had but more than what we got with Winter Games. The events include High Dive, 400-meter dash relay, 100-meter dash, the Gymnastic Vault, the Freestyle Relay, and the 100-meter Freestyle Swimming event. Despite having more events than Winter Games, I found this game kinda meh. But is this meh game a super game, according to Atari's definition? Well, once again, we have more memory, copying the size of Winter Games, but also once again, Epyx beat Atari to the punch by releasing it on the Atari 2600 first. Next is our first port of an arcade game, CX7829 Hat Trick, which is based on the 1984 Bally Sente arcade game. In this 2-on-2 hockey game, you control both the goalie, using up and down on the joystick, and the skater at the same time. The matches are short, lasting only 2 minutes, with a 20-second sudden death overtime if needed. The novice mode is really easy. The computer goalie loves to allow blocked shots from your own goalie in, but the expert mode does create quite the challenge. The big problem with this game is its super choppy animation, making this game feel like a slog to play. In the arcade version, the skaters left skate marks on the ice, but here, the ice somehow brightens up over time with use. Although the Zamboni does quote-unquote clean the ice at the end of the game to restore it to a nice dingy gray. This is a terrible port of a game that didn't exactly set the world on fire in the arcades. But is this a super game? Well, it is a 48K cart, so technically larger than the first year's games, and it is the only port of Hat Trick to a home system. So actually, according to Atari's definition, on the back of the system box, but not the fold-out catalog, the answer is surprisingly yes. Hat Trick is a super game. Finally, we have the only game from 1989, CX7832 Impossible Mission, based on the popular 1984 C64 game by Epyx. Some believe this game came out in '88, but it does not appear on sales sheets from Atari until 1989, so I'm going to say it came out in early 1989. In this game, you go from room to room, avoiding robots, searching items to find bonus items that can freeze robots or reset the lifts, as well as 36 puzzle pieces, which you can move and recolor to put together 9 punch cards, each consisting of 4 pieces. You needed to do this to get into the bad guy's control room. Unfortunately, the North American cartridge had a bug that put some of the needed puzzle pieces under computer terminals which you were not allowed to search, making this game truly impossible. While Atari never fixed this for the US, they did publish a bug-free version in Europe. Whether it was a troll or the magazine people simply did not know, when Lee Miller of Waterford, Connecticut asked Atari Magazine if the game was impossible due to the missing pieces, Lee was told that he must have missed something. Turns out Lee was right, and it's a shame, because outside the bug and the missing digitized speech, this game was sizing up to be a great fun port. But is it a super game? Well, it is a 128K game with an extra 8K of RAM on board. And this was the first port of Impossible Mission to a home system, so yes, it's a super game, with a super bug that made it impossible to finish in North America. So there you go, the 8 Super Game cartridges for the Atari 7800. Games that were supposed to be first-time home ports on larger cartridges, but only 3 cartridges, Karateka, Hat Trick, and Impossible Mission, fit that definition, with 2 of those titles being pretty bad ports and the third having a game-breaking bug. In the end, the whole Super Game cartridge label seemed to be nothing more than marketing gobbledygook, kind of like when Sega touted that the Genesis had blast processing, although that was more consistent with the truth. Perhaps this was done to justify the higher prices these cartridges would have, or to stand out against competition on the NES and the Sega Master System. Whatever the reason, after Impossible Mission was released in early '89, Atari stopped using the Super Game cartridge language, even though the system would later see some first-time ports on larger cartridges like Ace of Aces, Crossbow, Fight Night, Mean 18 Ultimate Golf, Super Huey, and Tower Toppler. Perhaps there was a fear labeling some games super would make the other games in the system's library look mediocre. Who knows, but for whatever reason, it was no more. So that's the story of the Atari 7800 Super Game cartridges. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you next time.